And this week's album of the week is The Great Western. It's James Dean Bradfield. Morning, James.
Morning, sir.
Now, about 14, 15 months ago, the Manics had their performance at the Apollo and said that we're away for 2 years now.
Yeah.
Then, did you have this album in mind? Were you ready to start writing it?
There might have been an inkling in my mind that I couldn't survive a year on my couch watching, ESPN classic sport without going mad. So in the back of my mind, I had a doubt that I could actually just, take a year out. And then about a month later, I did start writing, music for a solo album, which is strange because it was never an ambition of mine to be a solo artist. It was always my ambition to be in the gang that is Manic Street Preachers, however a corny notion that may be, I like being in a band. But this came out of me just turning into quite a dysfunctional person. When I took a year off, I just couldn't manage being normal without music in my life, kind of thing.
Or was it something to do with the work ethic? Was that eating away at you? Or?
I don't know if it's a slight notion of Welsh Presbyterian left in me there somewhere. I'm not quite sure. It's quite strange. I begin to realise I'm very similar to my father. I'm slightly aggressive underneath it all. And my father needs to either take a roof off or to build something or do the garden, and I need to pick up a guitar and just make a lot of noise. So it's just, as you get older, you realise everything your parents told you about yourself is right. And I remember just thinking, I've got to work, I feel useless, kind of thing. So, yeah, it is a work ethic thing.
And did the songs flow easily? Was it an easy album to write?
No, the first month or so, I was very disappointed with what I'd written. When you're actually writing songs, you're not only aiming to connect with an audience, you're aiming to connect with yourself. And for the first month, I just didn't even connect with myself. I missed it completely. I was writing things and playing it back, and I just thought, that's just awful. So after the first month, I just thought, right, I've got all the bad stuff out of the way. Now the good stuff's going to come to the top, and I kind of think it did then.
But you have to dig a little deeply into yourself, which is not an easy thing to do, not a very pleasant thing to do sometimes.
Yeah, I think there's kind of a misconception that people think writing is a good thing because they think you can just sit at home, put the kettle on, stare out the window blankly, pick up a guitar, and you're in the garret. And it's not quite like that. Writing is never quite that enjoyable. The only time it's ever enjoyable is when you've finished and you actually like what you've done. But, I don't know if it's therapeutic, I don't know if it's catharsis involved. I'm not intelligent enough to actually, realise if there's some kind of self-therapy going on in songwriting. But when it's good and when you finish it, you definitely feel like going out and having a bit of a binge drink.
Yeah, because you feel as if you've done something.
Yeah, you do,
You've produced something that you may not even have known was there or practically want to have out in the public domain.
I think what you're aiming to do is digging deep enough so you're actually speaking in tongues almost. When stuff starts coming and you haven't thought about it, when stuff just rises to the surface, you are hoping for a subconscious reaction in yourself.
It's a stream of consciousness out it
Hopefully,
comes. Yeah. Tell me about the Manics, though. I mean, it's this 2-year sabbatical, I suppose you could call it. But does the move into solo work for you particularly mean that the Manics is drifting out of your importance?
No, there's kind of, for me, the Manics, there is a slightly mafia-esque feel about the Manics. Once you're in, you're in. You can't drift away from it. You could break from it in a schism, but you could never drift from it. Once you're in the Manics, that's it for me. You're in it. It's still my touchstone. It's still my home. It's still where the hearth and the fire is. And it's to be honest, it's still what's most important to me musically.
And you're a close band. I mean, you enjoy each other's company, or you're good in each other's company.
Yeah, no, we are. I mean, we all grew up with each other, so we were all friends before we formed the band. Any ego clashes that we would have had would have happened before we decided to form a band, and we wouldn't have been friends, So kind of like all those little nitty-gritties that bands have, they form a band, then 2 years down the line they decide they don't like the person that they're in a band with, whereas we were friends before we formed the band. So there's never any problems between us, and when there is tension between us, it's good. It's easily resolved. We can be highly insulting to each other whilst knowing that, there's still a lot of love and affection behind that insult.
It's family. It's family talk.
Exactly, yeah. So, this is, I talk to Nick at least twice a day on the phone, and whether it be about the new Welsh squad that's been announced for the tour of Argentina, or whether it be about a new song we've written, we're always talking every day.
And the album, The Great Western, that title refers to the fact that you wrote a lot of it travelling up and down from Wales to London.
I must have done that journey so many times since 1989. And I think this is just a slight reference to the fact that when you're young, you feel the need to escape the place that formed you. In my case, that being Wales and the valleys. And then, as you get older, you kind of get dragged back to the place that you once wanted to escape. And that's kind of a strange feeling. It's a very intangible feeling. There's something about it you can't quite describe. And you feel very kind of enthralled to it. And I don't know, it's strange when kind of the balance tips towards the place that you were born, and you start going back there more and more and more until you feel as if you should be staying there. It almost feels like a new frontier to you. It feels like a new life again. So I suppose that's why I call it the Great West. And this the notion of, yes, the train was my office. I think it was a bit of serendipity that the songs came together on the train, but also that the fact that you return to something that you once want to escape and it feels new to you. There's something about a new frontier feel to it, emotionally, metaphorically, wherever, and that's kind of why I call it the Great West, I think.
Well, let's hear a track from the album. Today's track is An English Gentleman. Just tell us about that track, what it's about.
I think this song's about just being very young, and it's about the indestructibility of youth, where you believe everything, any idea that comes into your mind, you believe you're right. And this is about somebody doing exactly that.
Okay, well, here it is. And James, thanks very much, and great success with the album.
Cool, thank you.